As data slowly becomes publicly available, it's becoming increasingly clear that the coronavirus crisis is taking a disproportionate toll on people of color in a number of ways. As the outbreak ravages these communities, advocates now worry that minority-owned businesses may not survive. With me now is Nathalie Molina Niño, who's the CEO of O Cubed. She's also the author of Leapfrog, the New Revolution for Women Entrepreneurs. Andre Perry is a fellow at the Brookings Institute and the author of Know Your Price, Valuing Black Lives and Property in American Cities. And Juana Summers, she's a political reporter for NPR covering demographics and culture. So good to see you all. Andre, I want to start with you. You know, there was a lot of excitement about the fact that these PPP funds were going to be, refilled, and there was going to be a new opportunity for people to line up and get what was due to them. We are not seeing that money go to minority-owned businesses. What is happening?
Well, they're using the same structures and operating under the same frameworks of the past. We've known for quite a long time that mainstream banks have not treated black and brown and other businesses well, being denied at more than twice the rate of their white counterparts. We also know that people of color receive higher interest rates on loans. So big banks are not friends of people of color historically. In addition, in the first CARES Act, they did not put money in the agency that works with black and brown people. So the Minority Business Development Agency only received $10 million of a $2 trillion package. And why that's significant, if you're not issuing funds to people or organizations that are proximate to the problem, you're really not trying to solve it.
Nathalie, you have been shouting from the rooftops about this issue. I want to pull up a slide that you are very familiar with. This is all from the Center for Responsible Lending. It shows that over 90% of Black, Latino, and Pacific Islander-owned businesses and 75% of Asian-owned small businesses stood close to no chance of receiving a PPP loan through a mainstream bank. Why is the federal government still using these banks if they know that this is a problem?
You know, it's a really good question, because the reality is if you are a tiny business owner in the most remote location where even the postal office has to take helicopters to find you, they have absolutely no problem collecting taxes from those businesses. They have no problem, for example, collecting taxes from undocumented business owners. And so why on earth we are acting as though it's a realistic expectation that this is some sort of an insurmountable challenge to reverse that and to get capital to the people who need it most. And let's be super clear that we know that women are starting businesses at twice the rate of men, but what a lot of people don't realize is that women of color represent 8 out of every 10 of those new businesses. So let's be super clear that this is a group that's underrepresented, but it also happens to be the single most entrepreneurial community in this country. And why we would have difficulty channeling much needed life-giving stimulus to the people that are most responsible for the future of our economy makes absolutely no sense.
Andre, what would it look like for Congress to do this correctly?
Oh, first and foremost, we do need a racial equity lens on all of our policies. If you're not talking racial equity in this disaster after it became fatally obvious that this is impacting people of color at higher rates, then you're really not trying to solve the problem. We first and foremost need to, as I said, redirect funds to individuals and institutions that are proximate to the problem. We need better testing. It's obvious that we're going to have to reopen the economy, but let's remember that black and brown folk never left the economy. The economy left us. And so if we're going to move forward, we need the kind of jobs, income, and benefits that's going to protect us over the long term.
Juana, there are two conversations sort of happening at the same time. There is the lack of data that we have on the racial disparity in terms of who has actually been affected by this virus. You have a number of members of Congress calling for collection and release of that information. But then you also have what is happening economically to brown and black communities. Where do you see the interplay between those two stories?
it's impossible to separate those two stories. It's clear that this is a virus that, as we know from pandemics, has really laid bare some of the economic and health disparities that we see in our communities of color. And I think that, to everyone else's points, any kind of response that does not look at this through a lens of race and equity is going to be lacking. And I think that's why you see members of Congress, governors across the country calling for more data to be collected, not just on who this disease is harming and killing, but also the other impacts, like folks who historically have been unable to access loans and therefore are not able to get the economic relief that they need now. It's very clear that there has to be more data collected in a robust way and studied so that future response can be informed.
Nathalie, set the stakes for us of getting this wrong. If you have Black and brown businesses that are shut out of getting these funds, if these businesses are not able to survive, what does it mean for those communities and what does it mean for the larger economy?
Yeah, and I would just say, Alicia, there's no if now. We have seen, and from what the reports I'm getting, within the next 24 to 48 hours, we will have given close to $600 billion of stimulus for small, quote unquote, small business out. And there's no if. Black and brown and many other communities of color are being left out. And so the best thing that I can tell you is a story of a woman who came to me saying that she was having difficulty getting PPP. She had at that point been shut out of 5 different banks' application process. And she came to me and I gave her an opportunity to maybe find a way through a friend to back channel her into some PPP stimulus. And by the time I got to her, she just didn't have it in her to apply a 6th time because she was in the process of burying her mother and dealing with the funeral arrangements that she could not attend because, of course, now we're in a situation where people can't attend the funerals of their own mothers. This is the same group of people that are dying at a larger rate who, for their communities, cannot survive without that corner bodega in a place, for example, in places like the Bronx and Queens, and for that matter, any other small city that has a food desert in their neighborhood. The lifeblood and the survival, the physical, medical survival of these communities is dependent on these small businesses. And I would just say that, to echo what the other panelists have said, you cannot disconnect the survival of communities of color's businesses with the survival of communities of color.
All right, Nathalie, Andre, and Juana, thank you all so much. Up next, the airline industry wants to get you back on a plane, but some serious changes will need